Coach Robb podcast, answering questions and eliminating frustrations about health, wellness, and performance since 1987.
Welcome to the Coach Robb podcast. Coach Robb, welcome to 2024. Happy New Year's, buddy.
Happy New Year's to you and Happy New Year's to all of our listeners. Can you believe we are on a new year, a new foundation, a new mountaintop? Here we go. Let's take this thing to the stratosphere.
I just turned 40, and it seems like the older I get, the faster time goes. It's one of those crazy phenomenons.
Yep, that's for sure. And I know we sound like our parents, right? Because when we were younger, we used to hear the parents say, time goes fast, don't rush it. And I kind of have to lean on the idea that our children are getting older, but you and I are not. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, buddy. This one's going to be a good one today. 2024, it's New Year's. It's actually New Year's Day as we're doing this.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people have, they're turning a new leaf, right? It's we hear all those New Year's resolutions. I'm going to get back into the gym. I'm going to eat better. You've heard it all, Coach Robb, I'm sure.
Yep. 100%. And when it comes to the new year, and I don't want this podcast to be just another, hey, New Year's resolutions, let's set some goals and let's divide and conquer. I want to really get to the cusp of what most people's frustrations are. And that is, how do we create a convenient way to work out? Life is not easy. You and we've talked about this personally. We've done podcasts on this. Life is not easy. Being fit's not easy. Being financially secure is not easy. Being good relationships are not easy. But I do think we need to set ourselves up for success. If you think about any professional athlete, those athletes are set up in a way that their success is actually convenient. So for those of you that follow us in the moto world, think about this. You have an Eli Tomac that has his own compound outside his back door. That's designed for convenience. He can mountain bike from his back door. That's convenience. He's fortunate enough he can fly private. He trains, sleeps in his own bed, lands at a private airport, gets swept away, goes right to his private motorhome. In that motorhome is all the food that he likes. It's been bought. It's in there. It's ready to be consumed. He's got the exact same bed in the back of the motorhome that he has back at home. Walks out of that motorhome, goes into an 18-wheeler. See how it's all about convenience? And yep. I don't want our listeners to think that setting up a convenient way to work out is outside the realm. It's very realistic. And what I want to talk about today is, how do we set it up? And by the way, before we go any further, Dan, I want to be very budget conscientious, because none of us like to spend money on, let's say, a piece of cardio equipment, the one that gets the biggest laughing stock at the beginning of the year. You go and purchase a treadmill. What does it become by March? Something that you hang clothes on, right? We hear about it all the time.
It's already the dump by then, Coach Robb.
That's
already in my way.
That's already in your way, right? It's sitting out at the curb that says free, never been used. And I don't want to make light of that. I want to stay more focused on convenience, because, and I've said this publicly before, if you're watching us on YouTube here, look at my hands. If you live here and you work over here 5 miles from the house, and the gym is 5 miles on the other side of the house, how tempting is it to drive by your home to drive to the gym? Most of us are going to be like, it's been a long day. I'm hungry. I'm just going to go ahead. I'll start tomorrow. So we want to make it to where it's convenient. We also want to make sure that we keep it changed up quite a bit. We're only human. After 3-4 weeks of doing something, we get mentally bored. So I want to talk about, how do we keep workouts convenient? How do we create a home gym in a very inexpensive way? And then how do we keep it fun? And most importantly, Dan, how do we make sure that our listeners achieve the goals that they want? And it's very simple. We're going to put goals into 2 categories. You either want to lose body fat, or you want to build lean muscle, or you want to do a combination of the 2. Now, if you want to layer on top of that some level of athleticism, perfect. We'll talk briefly about how to build muscular endurance, durability, lactate tolerance, sprint speed, and all that goes with it. But the cool part about it is, even if it's for general fitness, or whether you're looking for high level performance, it always needs to be about convenience. Otherwise, we just simply won't do it. So that's what I'm looking forward about.
And that's going to be today's show title. It's how to build the perfect home gym and how to use the perfect home gym. Before we get deep into this, Coach Robb, I want to do a little housekeeping here. got some new things for 2024, a new program called the Express program. Do you want to just kind of briefly tell the listeners and the viewers on what that is?
Yep, I appreciate you bringing it up. For those of you, once again, in our moto market, we've added to our membership area what we call the Express workout program. The workouts are 30 minutes or less, and they're integrated with both cardio as well as strength and flexibility. So what we did was we just created a new level of workouts. All they're designed to do is complement the existing elements that are in the membership area. In that membership area, you'll find nutrition, you'll find sports psychology. We do 2 live webinars. Every membership webinar that we've ever put together is actually archived by category. So you can go in there and you could do some research. Let's say that you want to work on just building your sprint speed. There's a multitude of conversations that we've had that have been archived. So it's a very important, it's a very comprehensive, but it's a very easy to use environment where it's self-paced. You can go in there and do as much or as little as you want. But we've just been listening to you guys. We've been looking at the emails, and we decided we will put together a program that allows you to get what you need done in 30 minutes. Now, before somebody who's sarcastic likes to leave a comment and go, "Oh, you can't build the same kind of fitness in 30 minutes that you can in 90." You're exactly right. But if all you've got is 30, let's make the best of it. So we're really proud of that. It's there. You can go to Complete Racing Solutions. If you go into the membership area, that's where you'll find the Express workouts.
Perfect. CompleteRacingSolutions.com. Check it out. Perfect for a vet rider, right? We don't have a lot of time typically. We have jobs, we have businesses, we have kids, and it's hard. I've had a challenge, Coach, getting to the gym at times because of my busy schedule. I think that the listeners are really going to like today's topic on how to build the perfect home gym. One more thing new for 2024, kind of not new, but definitely revised, and that is the Complete Racing Solutions or Coach Robb Amazon store.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot all about it. Yeah, we've been asked quite a bit to build an Amazon store by Amazon, and it just wasn't something that I was, interested in trying to manage. The big thing was the genesis that caused me to go ahead and build it was Amazon kept after us. And as you guys know, I'm a very big fan of Garmin. I don't sell Garmin's. I'm not paid by Garmin. I'm not a paid brand ambassador. I'm always looking for the resources that's going to help our listeners get the most out of all the things that they do, sleep and eat and work out. So what we decided to do was we put the Amazon store together, but I want to make it very clear that the Amazon store, my only prerequisite for setting the store up was that Amazon would promise us that we could provide you, the listeners, the best price possible. I'm not the least bit interested in making a couple dollars on a watch. What I am interested in is giving you guys the best product, the best variety. And what we did was we broke it up into all kinds of categories. So we have a category in there for strength and conditioning, which would be like stretch cords. For those of you that are in the endurance market, we have a running section, a swimming, a cycling section. We tried to break it up like with soft tissue. Like people are like, what the heck should I buy? You go out there, Dan, on Amazon, and there's 347,000 foam rollers. And so what we tried to do is we just took everything that's available. We narrowed it down to eliminate the confusion. So if you go to amazon.com/Coach Robb, I think it's Coach Robb Beams on there. We'll put the link on their follow up on this when we edit it and it goes to recording format. Click on the link on the screen here, and this will get you to the Amazon store. Again, it's not as much as a sales pitch as much as it is. We want people to have a one-stop shop for anything that they need for health, wellness, and performance. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I totally forgot about that store that we've been working on. Just out of sight, out of mind, I guess.
And I think that's what's really cool about your program, Coach, is it's just comprehensive, right? We're going to talk about how to build a perfect home gym and how to use a perfect home gym today. But not all of us know exactly what to buy, right? Or where to go buy it. And or we don't have time to go search this stuff down and track it down in our local stores, right? It makes it easy. We can jump on Amazon, go to the Coach Robb store, and purchase what we need and what we talk about today in this pod. So,
well, and it's very important, Dan, because if somebody is new listening to our pod together, What I'm not a big fan of is, hey, for $19.99, just around the corner, I'll give you the tips on how to use your heart rate monitor. That's not what we're about. It's the exact opposite. If you're going to invest in yourself with a heart rate monitor, sure, anybody can buy a heart rate monitor, collect a plethora of information. What do you do with the info? For those of you that cycle, you guys know how many people go and they rush out and they buy a power meter, accumulate a ton of power data, don't know how to use it, don't know how to interpret it, don't know how to train with it. That's our niche. It's just like for those of you who follow us in the moto market, I'm not going to argue whether you should stand up or sit down in a rut. I'm not going to argue whether you should have one or two fingers on the front brake. That's between you and your riding coach. What I will promise you is, how can I make sure that you're strong and flexible and have good enough endurance to do whatever the riding coach asks you to do for whatever period of time? When you decide to go ride or you decide to go race, how do I make sure that you can enjoy that and do it safely, reduce your risk of injury? That's where it ties in nutrition and hydration, integrate that with strength and flexibility. That's our niche. Like I said, I've never declared to be a riding coach. Do I ride? Sure. I've ridden since 78. Doesn't make me a pro riding coach. Just like, an ex-pro should not consider themselves a physiologist. No better than, and I've said this to you publicly, Dan, no more than me reading my manual for my 250F should I be hired by a factory team to spin wrenches. So that's why I'm hoping, and I do appreciate those that have followed us for a long period of time, hope and understand where we position ourselves in the realm of all of these sports that we're involved in. So I appreciate you clarifying that. We really want to make sure after today, you know what to buy, and when you buy it, how to use it, and then when you use it, how do you evaluate if you're getting any success? How do you know if you're moving that needle forward? That's what we're going to talk about. And by the way, not some ambiguous discussion. We're going to give you some very definitive steps. So all the resources are available. If you guys if you're watching this on YouTube, go to the description box, click on the resource page, the heart rate spreadsheet and everything we're going to talk about today. The testing protocols are there. And Dan, what's most important is, like, for those of you who follow us in the racing world, go to Complete Racing Solutions. We've got a plethora of articles and videos over there. What's the catalyst for arm pump? How do you fix arm pump? What are cramps? Where do cramps come from? How do you fix them? I mean, the point is they're all free resources that are sitting out there. So if you're new, please lean in on them. Go to coachrobb.com, find your sport of choice, or just stay on coachrobb.com. There's all kinds of resources there as well.
Perfect. Let's get into it.
Yes, sir.
How to build the perfect home gym. The first one comes, there's going to be really three things that we're going to talk about today. The first one being strength, right?
Yes,
you want to
sir.
be strong. So we don't need to go out and buy the Bowflex and buy the big fancy, gym workout stuff that you put in the garage, right? There's some pretty basic, simple items that we can get to complete these workouts. And let's start with strength.
Strength is a very, very important one. And I hope that everybody will stick with us here for the next 45 minutes, because strength is not going to be beneficial unless cardio is complemented with it. Cardio is not going to be beneficial unless you complement it with strength. Strength's not going to be beneficial unless you complement it with soft tissue. And I hope everybody will be patient for the next 45 minutes. And here's why. Think about, if you go back to biology 101 and you picture a muscle spindle cell. So Dan, if I could take a biopsy of your muscle, put it underneath the microscope, inside the belly of a muscle spindle cell is what we call the mitochondria, right? You guys remember it in high school or middle school. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But here's what I want people to understand. If you want to lose body fat, lift more weights, because the more lean muscle mass you have, the more fat burning furnaces you have in your body. So I get this question quite often. Is it better for me to lift weights or do cardio? The answer is yes. If you've only got 30 minutes, do 15 minutes of strength, do 15 minutes of cardio. So stop and think about that first and foremost, because a lot of people will be like, like for myself, and I've been on public record talking about this a lot. I have never enjoyed the gym. I'm not a gym rat. I don't enjoy the gym, never have enjoyed the gym. But once I changed my perspective and I realized the benefit of the gym, now I'm going, okay, suck it up. Not go to the gym and make it an absolute slugfest, not make it where you feel like you're going through the whipping tool, right? Go to the gym. And here's where I want to really, first and foremost, women, we're not going to make you look like men. Men, we're not going to make you muscle bound to where you can't do your sport of choice. And for those of you that are just getting back into fitness, we don't want to lift to the point that you're so miserable. My joke, Dan, is I don't want to make you so sore that you can't brush your teeth, because you're just not going to come back the next day. You're human, right?
Yep.
So think about, if strength training increases the amount of muscle spindle cells, which makes you a fat burning machine, make sure that strength training is of utmost importance. Now, when it comes to strength training, Dan, this is kind of like nutrition. Protein's good, protein's bad. Fat's good, fat's bad, right? Your muscles do not know where the load is coming from. So, for example, you could grab a milk gun, a jug of milk, right? Here in America, a jug of milk comes in a gallon. A gallon's roughly 8 pounds. You start doing bicep curls with milk jugs in your hands don't know if that's a dumbbell, a stretch cord. It doesn't know if it's a machine. It doesn't know. All it recognizes is, as you lift those 8 pounds, your biceps go, oh, wow, we're lifting. When you look at how do I build lean muscle mass? Very, very simple. You have to break the muscle tissue down, and then you have to feed it protein. What do we get out of protein is amino acids. So you have broken down tissue that are waiting for some food. The amino acids come in. That's how the muscle grows. That's how the muscle strengthens. So I want to make sure that people don't visualize when we say a strength program or a strength component in your home gym. I'm not saying you've got to go out and buy, when you go to the gym and you see the rack of weights next to the mirror, and those weights are anywhere from, 3 pounds all the way up to 100-pound dumbbells. Well, if you've ever gone to the gym, or excuse me, if you've ever gone to purchase free weights, they're usually about $1 a pound. So can you imagine, Dan, you're going to go buy those 100-pound dumbbells? Think about that. That's costing you $200 just for that one set. We're looking at spending less than $100 for everything in your gym. Yeah, I said it. $100 would be about it. And we'll talk about it here in a second. But before we get into what we need to buy, what does strength training really mean? All strength training means is expose the muscles. Remember, notice I use muscles: bicep, tricep, upper traps and shoulder, your quad muscles, your legs, your stomach muscle. Let that huge umbrella of muscles, right? Expose all your muscles to load. So for example, if you start doing push-ups, Dan, your body doesn't know if that's a push-up or if that's a bench press using individual dumbbells on a fit ball. Stop and think about that. When you drop to the ground and you do a push-up, you're working the front of your shoulders, triceps, both chest muscles, pec major and minor, teres minor, teres major, right? Or you can grab a couple dumbbells, go on a fit ball and do some flat bench chest press. Exact same muscles. Muscles don't have a brain. They don't go, oh, wow, this is really hard because this is free weights, versus going, oh, wow, this is hard. This is push-ups. And that's the paradigm shift that we need to get started with. What is strength training? Just submit the body to load.
Yeah, that's the biggest misconception, right? Is
yes,
that you have to have all this fancy equipment, and you really don't. And the other misconception is losing weight. People want to, their goal is always to lose weight. You hear that all the time. And then they're like, I got to lose weight. I'm going to go run, I'm going to go run a mile. And that's sure, it can be beneficial for cardio and whatnot, but not to lose weight. And
you bring up the volatile word though. Let's define what weight is. When we say weight loss, or I want to lose weight, because as we've talked about in previous pods together, Dan, I can park you in my car in a parking lot during the summer with the windows up.
Yeah.
You're going to lose weight. It's called dehydration. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's called dehydration. If I want to get you to start cannibalizing muscle tissue, we can get into a huge online debate about when you put the body into a state of starvation. Some people call it ketosis. I call it starvation, right? The body's designed that if you got stranded on an island, yes, it will adapt until it can't any longer. And that's not what I want to get into here. We've talked about that in the past, and people get all butthurt over it. But it's interesting along that thread of thought. If you were to Google right now, how much food does my dog need to eat? Notice I said dog because we just rescued a dog, right? And he's 85 pounds. So I want to make sure that I'm not overfeeding or underfeeding him. I'm not a veterinarian, so I went to Google. The very first line that it says is, if you underfeed your dog may become malnourished. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to let that simmer where it will, Dan. I'm not going to go any further than
Yeah.
that. So with that being said, like you just reiterated a few minutes ago, strength training doesn't mean that you have to have, an entire rack of weights. You don't have to have a squat rack. You don't have to have a Smith machine. You don't have to have all of this equipment. I always like to say, and if I can get everybody to visualize just a small room, maybe a 10 by 10, 10 by 20. Dan, you mentioned the word garage. That's also a great place to put it because, and I know this is going to seem like it's out of context and it sounds like a bunny trail, but it really isn't. One of the most powerful things I see with athletes is if I can get you to walk into a room and that room reminds you of what you're there to do. So, for example, what I ask my clients to do is when you go in your kitchen, no computer, no phone, no TV, go in the kitchen and set your mind off that you're there to either prep and or consume food. I know that sounds a little psychobabble, right? But if your brain walks into the kitchen and it sees 5 other things, it sees your checkbook. It's like, oh, we got to go to pay a bill. It sees a textbook. Oh, I got to go study. Oh, say you've got your business planner there. You're like, oh, I've got that podcast I've got to do. You see where the brain is like, what are we here to do? Well, the same thing applies. If you can set yourself up where when you walk into a designated part of your house, your brain walks in there and goes, we're here to work out. So, for example, please do not put a set of dumbbells in your bedroom. Please do not have where you pay your bills in your bedroom next to your weights. You see the problem? When your brain walks into the bedroom, it goes, all right, it's time to go to sleep. It's time to rejuvenate. If it walks into your office, it's like, all right, we're here to pay bills. We're here to do podcasts and we're here to do business. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have to take your office and you have to partition off a few feet of it to put a little bit of equipment in there, I understand you're limited on space. I'm just telling you, doing this for as many years as I have, I hate to even use the year, right? If you're sitting at your desk and in your peripheral, you see your weights, are you really focusing on doing your work? Or you're like, man, kind of got that guilty conscience that you should be lifting weights. And then you're over there lifting weights and you're like, man, I should be over there working. I've got a deadline. You see how this creates just more anxiety and stress that doesn't need to be there? That's what I want our listeners to think about. Strength training is very simple. It needs load. When the body is being put through load, make sure it's focused. Dan, I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say they've gotten injured trying to exercise because they were distracted and or short on time. And the reason why that's relevant is if you give yourself 30 minutes to work out, make sure you give yourself 30 minutes to warm up, do your main set, and cool down. Because if I just go from my office and I bop into the next room and I immediately start trying to do a bunch of heavy lifting, my risk of injury goes up quite a bit. Okay. So let's come back to, because Dan, you said it a few minutes ago, what would constitute an easy to build strength? Let's call it a strength gym, if you will, right? Because to me, a gym needs to have both the cardio and it needs to have the strength training. I want you, and again, we'll put this up on the screen for those that are, watching this on YouTube. I want you to visualize going and buying stretch cords. We have them in our Amazon store. Dan, all they are is they're surgical tubing that has different thicknesses and they're denoted by color. And if you get the ones, there's a bunch of them that are out there. You have single cords. They have handles on each side and it's just one color, one cord. And then they have some systems that will allow you to like take a clasp and you can hook up, like, for example, Dan, most people can do a lot more load on a shoulder press than they can, say, a tricep kickback, because the shoulders are such a bigger group of muscles. So what this stretch cord system allows you to do is you can click maybe 3 colors on there, then you can do standing shoulder press. You put the cords under your feet, stand on them, and you just do a shoulder press. Now, remember what we said, as long as there's load in your palm, you're going to be engaging all these shoulder muscles. Your body doesn't know if that is a gallon of milk, a gallon of water. It doesn't know if it's a stretch cord. It doesn't know if it's a block. For those of you that know what I mean about those weight blocks, you can pull the pin out and you can adjust the weight. You think about those blocks. Those blocks can be adjusted up to 40, 50 pounds per block. So Dan, think about a cinder block, right? You would have 2 of those sitting in your room. You have all the weight you could ever want. You could have a multitude of stretch cords. So I don't want to sound like I'm being a hypocrite here, those blocks are pretty expensive. Those are $200-300. I'm just saying, if you're investing in those, my point is your hand doesn't know if you're holding a block, a gallon of milk, or a stretch cord. The only thing the shoulders know, is I'm lifting weight. Wow, I'm lifting 20 pounds. I'm lifting 30 pounds. I'm lifting 50 pounds of load. You might want to interject that with resistance. Stretch cord is about lifting against resistance of the cord itself. If you have weight in your hand, you're just lifting the load of that. Your body does not care where the load comes from. So that's what I want people to understand. When I say you can build a gym for less than $100, those stretch cords are like $8 to $12 a piece. You can buy the grouping, Dan, where you can get multiple colors. And I think they're like 45, 50 bucks. If I can get you to buy the stretch cords, the only other thing that I want you to buy for your gym specific to strength training would be a fit ball. I call them the big bouncy balls that you see in the gym.
Like the big exercise ball.
Exercise ball. There you go.
And guys,
go ahead.
Chicks, I think women use them for Pilates or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, guys, to use the big exercise ball.
Well, let me explain why the exercise ball is so good. When I was at the Olympic Training Center as a triathlete, we had to do all of our exercises on a fit ball, all of them. The only variation of that would be like if you're doing a standing exercise, like standing biceps or standing shoulder press. And even then we had to stand on a folded towel to work proprioceptive balance. It actually makes you stronger in a shorter period of time. So Dan, you bring up a really good point. On the fit ball, that fit ball it's a unisex type of an item, even though you see it associated with yoga or certain things like that. When we're looking at a fit ball, and by the way, let me back the train up just a little bit. Please make sure that you look at the size chart on what the centimeters are of the ball you buy. So for example, if you're over 6 feet tall, you're probably going to need like a 65 centimeter ball. But the ball can get so big, like my wife is 5 feet tall. If I have a big 65 centimeter ball, she literally can't keep her feet on the ground. And for those of you who are listening to this, try to visualize. I'm going to show it on the screen here, Dan, for those on YouTube. Say that this is your tib fib, right? So you have your femur. Let's say you're laying flat on your back on the fit ball, and then you have your tib fib that comes down so your feet are stationary on the ground. Well, like when you're trying to do your abdominal work, the greatest amount of load is when you go into a negative range of motion. So for example, if I can get you to lower your head below the horizon, you will get more abdominal strength in a shorter period of time of lifting from negative to horizontal. If you go from horizontal up above, it doesn't have as much of an impact as if you're below. See where we're going with this?
Yeah.
If my wife can't get her feet on the ball, instead of her back being flat, because the ball's too big, it now has her back is no longer flat. It's going to be angled upward. She's not going to get as much out of it. Most people don't think that really matters, but I've been in this business long enough that when I hear people getting frustrated, hey man, I've been working out for 4 or 5 months and I haven't seen any improvement. Well, just because that just tells me that you're doing it, unfortunately, in a way that's not stimulating growth in the body. The cool part about the body, Dan, is if you submit it to stress and you feed it and you sleep it, and if you rest it, you give it the sleep that it needs, it will 100% get stronger and it will definitely become leaner. And if you do something for, let's just use a calendar year, Dan, if you do something for a quarter, 3 months, and you haven't seen some kind of a change, you're doing it wrong. And that's why I'm so anal, Dan, and you know this because I've had the privilege of working with you. That's why I think it's imperative that people take their body measurements every 6 weeks. Don't do something for 6 months and go, shoot, that didn't work. No. Time is too precious. You just said it earlier. You're 40. That seemed like yesterday you were 18, right?
I know.
It seemed like yesterday you were 21. You could have your first beverage legally with your dad. Think about that. You're 40 now. Can you imagine lifting the wrong way for 6 months, much less 6 years? Take your body measurements every 6 weeks. It's in our resource area underneath this video. It's on the Coach Robb resource page. Use it. Do it with calipers, do it with tape measurements. It's the quickest way to be able to see if you're building muscle, dropping body fat. And Dan, that's why I thought it was so cool when you said earlier, people want to lose weight. Well, let's clarify that. Because if I take a proportional bowl I know this is a gross illustration, but if I take a cereal bowl of body fat and I take a cereal bowl of lean muscle mass and we weigh that proportionally, muscle always weighs more than fat. So if you see the scale going up, this makes people freak out. They're like, how in the world can the scale be going up when I'm eating cleanly? I'm doing cardio 3 days a week. I'm doing strength training. No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's why I always have my clients go off of tape measurements, because that way, tape measurements and calipers, that way you get to see the erosion of the body fat. And then I always, not everybody's into athleticism, but I think even if you consider yourself a general fitness person, challenge yourself to cardio challenges. I know that's redundancy, right? Challenge yourself to cardio challenges. So, for example, let's say that you're new to fitness and you can walk a mile in 25 minutes. Well, if in a month you can walk that in 24 minutes and 40 seconds, you're 20 seconds faster. We're all human. Even if you don't consider yourself hyper competitive, humans like to see success. So that's why I always say we need to quantify, because Dan, we get back into that sensitive subject known as confidence. How do you have confidence that what you're doing is actually working? Show me quantification of results. If my calipers are down 2 millimeters on my belly or wherever I hang on to body fat, and I can walk 30 seconds faster for a mile than I could a month ago, I'm feeling pretty good that what I'm doing is working. And that's the name of the game. It's not about, oh, you're such a good person and dote all over you and blow smoke up your skirt. We're human. None of us like to go to work and see our bank account not get bigger. None of us likes to go to the gym and not feel like we're making some kind of inroads. Well, do you feel like you're stronger or are you stronger? So if you're doing a bicep curl that's 5 pounds heavier now than you did a month ago, you get that confidence that you're like, wow, I'm actually physically stronger.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important too about this, right? Is setting some goals, setting some short-term goals, setting your long-term goal, right? And recognizing those little wins, right? Because they do keep you motivated to keep on, pushing through to get to your next goal. So I think that's very important.
Well, you said it earlier. A lot of people will start the new year and say they want to lose weight. I like to have them clarify how much body fat. Nobody really is saying when they want to lose weight, they're saying, I really would desire, I'd like to drop 10 pounds of muscle this year. It's just insinuated, right? We assume that when we say we want to lose weight, it's body fat. Okay. To your point, Dan, quantify how much body fat you would like to lose and feel confident. So, for example, I've had athletes that have lost 5 pounds of body fat and they felt like it wasn't enough because of exactly what you just said. At what point are you going to say, okay, this year has been a good year. I've dropped X amount of body fat? Because when it's quantified, and what my biggest enjoyment is when somebody says they want to lose 10 pounds and they're like, I want to lose it by Friday. And I'm like, no, we don't. We want to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks. What the heck? No, that's 2.5 months. I don't want to do that. Well, stop and think about it. You didn't put on 10 pounds in 10 weeks, but we can get 10 pounds off in 10 weeks. And this is a little bit of kind of a reverse ideology. Think about how long it's taken for you to put 10 pounds on. Give yourself that amount of time to take it off. People get all pissed off. They're like, for example, I always like to say, what was your fighting weight in high school? Unless you were obese, which I was up until 8th grade. So that doesn't work for me, right? But for the average individual, you say, hey, look, what was your weight in high school? Where's your weight right now? How many years have you been out of high school? If I said to you, Dan, you've been out of high school for 25 years, give yourself 25 years to lose those 25 pounds. I'd be like, screw you, this is ridiculous. Well, then, okay, I agree. That's taking way too long. But then when you say you want to lose 10 pounds by Friday, you got to work with me here. If this seems unrealistic because it's way too long, does it really seem realistic that you're going to lose 10 pounds in 10 days? No. What your body has to sacrifice, which is predominantly water, that's not a healthy weight loss. Just as a general rule of thumb, just shoot a pound a week is what you're looking for. That's just a general, easy number to hit. Now, again, I know some people are like, damn, that means I've got 50 weeks ahead of me. Yeah, that's okay. The beautiful part is you're taking the weight off and we can validate that it's body fat. You're doing it in a way that the body doesn't grow resentment, which means you're going to keep doing it. And you're doing it at a point that you actually enjoy it. Now we've we've triggered the switch on sustainability.
Yeah.
Because it's a lifestyle. It's not, hey, let's just hit a number. We've all been there, right? Once the scale hits a number, once the pant size hits a number, how anticlimactic is that? That's why even if you're someone who you do not consider yourself athletic, Dan, I recommend this to everybody. Sign up for a 5K. And they go, what the heck? Why? Start walking in your gym, walk around your block, do whatever you're going to do, which we'll get to next on the cardio side. But when you cross a finish line, right, first and foremost, you hit submit on the registration. So now the date's established. Dan, have you ever heard the word or the Parkinson's law of time? Have you ever heard? Okay. So what the Parkinson's law says is work will fill the amount of time that's allocated to getting it done. So if I give you a project and I say I need this done in 9 months, most people will take 9 months to get it done. If I take that same project and I say I need it done in 6 months, people will get the job done in 6 months. Work will match the amount of time it's been given. That's the Parkinson's law. So I'm very big on, I'm giving you 6 weeks to hit this level of achievement. It's not an unrealistic number because we base it off of what we call critical speed numbers. But my point is this, I will guarantee we'll get there if you'll do the work. I'll guarantee that we'll get there if you'll match the intensities that we're after. Come back to the person that I want to walk a 5K. When Dan hits that submit button, he's like, oh goodness, I've got 9 weeks for this 5K. That's going to motivate you to get out the door, right? Because you've given yourself 9 weeks. Parkinson's law of time is like, all right, I've only got 9 weeks to be fit enough to walk a mile. Well, now Dan, along the way of training for those 9 weeks, he drops 8-9 pounds of body fat. As he loses body fat, he's lighter on his feet, literally. He's walking progressively faster with less effort. Now he goes and he walks that 5K. He's there with 2,000 people. He's like, holy cow, I'm with a bunch of runners. Gun goes off, you walk, you get your 3 miles in, right? You get to that 3.1 mile mark, you get a finisher's medal, you get a t-shirt. You don't think that's going to surpass getting to a pant size, getting to a scale number on, who gives a flying flip? You got to the pant size and the scale while training for a 5K. Well, now you've got the accomplishment with 2,000 other people. You see the difference?
I'm going to have to sign myself up for a 5K, coach. I've never done one.
Well, but that's exactly it. How many people have not signed up for a 5K because it's just like the gym, Dan? They think you've got to have a 1,200 square foot gym. You've got to go and spend $100 a month on a gym membership. No. Change your perspective. You've hit the scale. You've hit a certain pant size literally 5-6 times in your life, and you've gotten there so many times, you're like, ugh. And to get there is relatively miserable. I remember my dad, he would do that once a year thing. He's hell bent, he's going to lose some weight. So he'd do fried liver every single day. It's all he would eat for a month. You come home and the house stinks, and he lost the weight and he was miserable and nobody wanted to be around him. And we couldn't wait for him to hit his number because we knew he was going to go back to eating normal and he was going to be polite again. Right. God rest my dad's soul. But the idea is the same. We're all the same way. What is it we're trying to accomplish, and that's why I was saying, please make the weight loss be realistic, but make sure the weight loss is fat specific, not muscle or dehydration. And make sure that the loss, the percentage of loss per week, make sure it's realistic. 1 pound a week is the way to go. And we always want to start by strength training because strength training builds more lean muscle. More lean muscle means you've got more fat burning furnaces. It's a win-win-win for you, which then leads us to the side of cardio.
So just let's round up strength here. Stretch cords, exercise ball, anything else?
Yeah. If you've got a couple extra dollars and you want to invest in one of those weight blocks, that's great. I like to do the stretch cords. If you come into my own home gym, it's nothing but stretch cords because I have tight space. We have our pain den, which is our cardio. We've got 2 bicycles in there because my wife and I, we have our bikes on stationary trainers. And then right in front of that is where we have the mat, where we have the fit ball. We have all of our stretch cords.
Perfect. Easy to store. Doesn't take up a lot of room.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And then, you can always add other things, which by the way, Dan, I'm sorry, let me digress for just a moment. Let's also add, for those of you who ride moto, bring one of your bike stands into the gym. The reason why I say that, and for those of you who don't ride moto, have a nice sturdy chair I know it sounds old fashioned. Get an old fashioned wooden chair. Because what you can do, Dan, is you can just do step ups onto that chair. That's like doing a squat. And I would encourage anybody who is looking for strength programs, feel free to hit me up. I have no problem sending you for free a strength program. Let me give you in real quick, Dan. Here's why. If I want to work your legs, right, I can do a Bulgarian split squat. I can do a walking lunge. I can do a step up on a chair. I could take the fit ball and put it in the small of your back, and I can have you do squats up and down on the against the wall with your head directly over your spine, so you don't end up hurting your back. How many times have you seen people get hurt doing a squat at the gym?
Yeah.
Because as soon as they go to squat, their head sticks out, their butt goes back, and then the risk of that disc slipping is quite high. My point being is there's not a single muscle in your body that I cannot work with stretch cords, a fit ball. I don't even need the step up. I don't even need the chair. I can hit every single muscle in your body from earlobes to toenails with stretch cords and a fit ball. And I'll be happy to send that strength program out to anybody.
Perfect.
Yep, just reach out to us. So just want to make sure of that when we're talking about strength.
Let's move on to cardio.
Yes, sir.
This one, we don't need treadmills. We don't need ellipticals. We don't really need exercise bicycles, right?
Yep.
There's some things that we could do that are very basic.
Very basic. And again, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. My wife and I, we still enjoy doing triathlons. We still ride moto. We're very diversified, and because we enjoy it, right? But I don't want to sound like a hypocrite when I'm saying my gym has 2 stationary bikes. My wife's bike is on a Wahoo Kicker, and she uses the Zwift interface. And then I actually have an old Kinetic, which is just the one that I prefer. It's a kinetic fluid. I'm a little more old school. I want to be able to get on my bike. I've got my heart rate monitor. I can set the resistance and I can do my workout. My wife, she's highly technical. She loves all the digital stuff. She likes to get on Zwift and do a bike ride with 5,000 people. You say, well, Rob, I thought we weren't spending any money. You're exactly right. I just wanted to clarify when I say what my gym looks like, it's because the majority of my space is being eaten up by 2 bikes indoors. And, with texting the way it is, we just prefer, if we can't ride on a bike trail where there are no cars, then we just ride indoors. But Dan, let's go back to, like you said, let's keep it simple. If we start inside the gym, Dan, do you know some people call it Jacob's ladder, some people call it military spiders. You put your hands on the side of a bench and you just bring your knees up to your chest, and you do those as quickly as you can. You can do a burpee, good old fashioned drop to the ground. I always like to add a push up and then jump up and then do a star. That requires no cardio equipment, but I can guarantee that you'll get your heart rate elevated. To me, once you get past doing something like military spiders or lumberjacks, you do the burpees. If you want to invest $20 and get a nice jump rope, and if you've got enough room, or maybe you have to step outside and do it in your driveway, think about a jump rope. You're going to strengthen your ankles, you're going to strengthen your calves. It definitely is going to get the heart rate up. Now, stop and think about this, Dan. Let's say you and I are going to go ride moto all week long throughout California. We could take our stretch cords and our jump rope and put it in each pair of our workout shoes, and literally our gym goes on the road with us. So for those of you that have to travel, sometimes you end up getting into a hotel that has a really crappy gym. Well, if you've got your stretch cords, and I know this may be a little extreme, you can even deflate your fit ball and put it in your suitcase. So now you can make your hotel room a portable gym. Stretch cords, jump rope, fit ball. So if you're kind of going on a hierarchy between doing the Jacob's ladders, military spiders, then go to jump rope, the next thing is head outside, because now you can start walking around your block. Again, it goes back to not make everything a race, but I think it's fun, right? Go from your mailbox, go around the block, and how quickly can you get there? Go clockwise, go counterclockwise, do an out and back. So walk. So think about this, Dan. You've got 10 minutes to work out today. It's just, you got home late and you're like, I need some fresh air, but I'm going to at least go walk for 10 minutes. Walk out for 6, try to come back in 4. Just hold you accountable. Go out for 5.5, try to come back in 4.5, whatever numbers you want. That's what we call a negative split. Come back faster than you went out. Let's say that you can walk for 10 minutes. If you've got a heart rate monitor, start nice and easy. Heart rate's at 100, and kind of walk quickly. And as you bring the heart rate up to 110, then slow back down. It's called a heart rate ladder. So what you're doing is you're going for a walk, but you're changing and breaking up the monotony of, all right, I've walked around this block a million times, right? You've been in your house for 11 years. You're like, I know every crack on the sidewalk. I understand. Change it up. Have fun. This is going to be my little public announcement. Please do not walk with earphones in. Please do not walk with earphones in. I had a lady, she was my age, she was 55 years old. She was on a bike trail walking, and she had earplugs in, and a guy was flying on his bicycle, hit her from behind, knocked all of her teeth out of her face, cracked her skull. It was ugly.
Jeez.
She never heard him coming. Now, I still think it's obviously it's a cyclist's fault, right? He hit her from behind. I don't know. And it's a huge trail. It's a 12-foot trail, good visibility. I live in Florida. It's flat as a pancake. He freaking hit her from behind. He was time trialing on a it's a bike / hiking trail. What are you doing, dude? Almost 30 miles an hour, hit her straight from behind.
Wow.
My point being is, please don't block your ears. And I hate to say it, you don't want to make yourself vulnerable. If you look at a lot of the people who have problems when they're out hiking, particularly women, please don't be out running and walking with headphones in. You make yourself so susceptible. And that's my public announcement for the moment. But no, seriously though, it's like, if you're going to go walk, make sure that you change it up. Do heart rate ladders, do negative splits, do out and backs, do whatever breaks up the monotony. Go clockwise. Dan, you know how it is. If you ride a track backwards, it seems like you're in a completely different zip code.
Yeah.
Keep it fun. Now, it goes to full circle. If you want to, let's say that you're walking for a while and you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to go ahead and try to start run. Please don't try to run a mile. Run from this mailbox to the next mailbox, and then walk the next 2 mailboxes, then run to the next mailbox. So you're doing little bits at a time. You go, Rob, what do you think I am, soft? No, I just know it's not sustainable if all of a sudden you wake up tomorrow and decide, I'm going to go run 4 miles. You're going to be so sore you won't even be able to squat to go to the restroom. Not trying to be rude. I've just had these conversations with people. It's like, don't make it harder than it needs to be. It goes back to, like we said, Dan, let's make sure that we just little bite size, let's bite off as much as we can really assimilate. If our goal is to lose a pound a week and you're using cardio, just try to run. Let's say you're out for a total of 10, 15 minutes of walking. Let 3 of those be quote unquote jogging. You got your percentages that you need.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, right? Is to take it slow. Don't get frustrated. Don't try to overdo it. Us guys are probably the worst, coach,
Absolutely.
because we're manly and we gotta, oh man, I gotta be able to go run this mile in under, 7 minutes. And, you get out there and you run it in 12, right? And you're like, oh man, I suck.
Yep.
I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Yep.
That
Well,
take it
like
slow.
you and I always say this, the older we get, the faster we were, right? I mean, that's just reality.
Yeah.
So you're using a high school pace of 7, and you're like you said, you come back at a 12, you're like, it just reiterates how much of a fat slob I am. That little negative bird just starts chirping away like nobody's other. And I know I sound like I'm being soft, and I don't mean to. It's just, if you do just enough each day to stimulate the body and it's enjoyable, heaven forbid, like say, especially as men, we put out our peacock feathers, right? Heaven forbid we actually enjoy fitness. And it's just like strength training. I mean, yeah, there's a point in a time where you like to challenge yourself here and there, but every workout cannot be a slam fest. And this is something that, I find that when we're looking to enjoy fitness, we usually don't put a way to measure it. And then if we don't measure it, we have no way to see our success. And we don't see that. Let's replace success with incremental improvement. Because if you're going to the gym and you're working out 3 days a week, and you're going in your home gym 3 days a week, and you're doing cardio 3 days a week, there is no way you can argue that you're not fitter than you were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And then we go, well, then why did we stop? Because you didn't see the quantification. You didn't see the improvement. We go back to that confidence word. If you've made that and this is probably the most important adjustment that needs to be made, if you don't get that 1%, that 1 degree perspective change, none of this will ever fall into place.
I just did some quick math too. Sorry, go ahead, Coach Rob. I didn't want to.
No. All I was just going to say, go ahead.
I was thinking about this, and we're talking about these incremental, right? And it's I hear it a lot, and I've made the same excuse myself. I just don't
Sure.
have time, right? I
Yep.
just don't have time. And if you could just work out for 10 minutes a day,
Hmm.
find 10 minutes. If that's all you have, that's 60 hours a year,
Yes.
right? If you do the math, you can't tell me that if you can just work out 10 minutes a day, that's 60 hours a year, you're not going to be better than you were the year before.
Absolutely. But we get into that semantical game of what is a workout. See, this is why I'm on one hand, I love Google, and on the other hand, I think Google is the worst thing that ever became created because everybody's now an expert, and people like to spin the truth, and people like to spin and become extremely extravagant of what does it really take to become healthy. You know, it's sometimes like we've been fortunate enough to go to Europe. It's amazing how much they ride bicycles and walk everywhere in Europe. And in all reality, most Europeans are much smaller than most Americans if you were to look at the population as a whole. Well, okay, that's not about, trying to throw anybody under the bus. What's the difference?
Yeah.
You just said it, Dan. If you have to walk 30 minutes to work every day or 30 minutes to the bus station or the train station, like you see over there, right? You're walking. And yet most people will say they don't have 10 minutes to walk, where these people walk to the train station. They walk from the train station to their office. They take the stairs. And it's just that perspective change of 1 degree. And I want to go back to, and if I may elaborate on your numbers game, if I could take and get anybody who's listening right now, if you just sink your teeth into the idea of let's lose 1 pound of body fat per week, that's not a lot. It's not little. It's not a lot. Now go to the gym and imagine those big 45-pound dumbbells, Dan. You just took that off your body in 1 year.
Yeah.
If you want to put it into a visual perspective, right? Go to the gym, pick up that 45-pound dumbbell, and 12 months from right now, listening to this, if you lose a pound a week, you've lost that plus another little 10-pounder sitting right next to it, or that and a 5-pounder, or that and a 7-pounder, whatever. The point being is it's all about incremental improvements. Yeah, you could get onto the soapbox. Oh, we're so short-sighted. It's all about immediate gratification, blah, 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 blah. It really is, but it's not. Because what's interesting for the average listener, when I say average, I mean people who have to deal with this every year, that came across completely wrong, and I apologize. What I'm saying is, on one hand, I'm saying to you, let's strive for 1 pound a week. And you go, that's not enough. And then you go the other direction and you try to get 3, 4 pounds a week. And then you either get injured or you get burnt out or both. And now you're 10 pounds heavier at the end of the year, where if you just stuck with me on losing a pound a week, you'd be 52 pounds lighter at the end of the year. It's not that I have to be right. I've just done it enough times. And that's why I wanted to put this pod together. Why are people not working out? It's not convenient, right? So what defines convenience? When you wake up in the morning, you literally step out of bed, put on some walking shoes, put some clothes, and go walk around the block. Get some sun on your skin. Let's get some fresh oxygen. If that means you come in and you go right into your shower and you go to work, cool. Then when you get home, before you leave the office, put your walking shoes on. I don't care if you're wearing a dress. I don't care if you're wearing a 3-piece suit. Get out of your car with your walking shoes on. Just walk around the block. Then come in, take a shower, and start your evening with your family. And then we just kind of build off of that because, like you said, Dan, sometimes it's just the difference of going up a set of stairs. You're in a building and it's a 2-story building. You just use the stairs instead of the elevator. People, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, wait a second. If you're telling me that you want to lose a lot in a short period of time, what are we looking at? A lot of volume in a short period of time. I'm looking for a lot of volume over a longer period of time. So what's the chances that you're going to enjoy it more?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
Dan, if you and I made 2 steps, one is 18 inches high, and we make 3 that are 6 inches high, what are most people going to take?
6-inch one.
Every time.
Yeah.
But then when we get into this idea and mainly, let me elaborate on the thought. Most of us want to jump up the 18-inch step, right? That's because we've got this attitude that we're mad at ourselves. We're disgusted with ourselves. We see a high school picture. You said, Dan, you go and you run a mile and you're like, gosh, man, that's 5 minutes slower than I used to run, right? As our good friend Johnny Hopper says, comparison is the theft of joy, right? The older we get, the faster we were. Stop. Turn it off. You are where you are for whatever reason. It could be self-induced. Maybe you've been drinking and eating bad food for 10 years. It's done. You can't change it now. So why browbeat yourself, and why make it to where the process of trying to shed the weight becomes another punishment? And I could do a whole podcast with you on, we've got to stop, we've got to break this cycle between exercise is punishment for bad food choices. We've got to break this. And especially, on the cusp of being at the new year, this is when it's usually on everyone. They're like, dadgummit, that's it. I'm doing it this year. I love that. For whatever, maybe it's kind of the Hallmark holiday. Everybody's in the idea that it's a new year. I'm going to set goals and it's always going to be fitness. And unfortunately, there's a multi-billion-dollar business out there that thrives on providing a system that's designed to fail. Think about that. If you look at all these weight loss programs where you eat a meal, or you drink a can of something, or you eat some bar, right? First of all, anything that comes in a box, a bag, or a can has preservatives in it. Preservatives, your body cannot digest, plain and simple. So if you think about the quality of the food, so you and I, Dan, you and I own one of these prepared, pre-made, prepared meals, right? Mm-hmm. The number one thing that you and I want is to get people addicted to them. So if you look at most of those, if you look at the ingredients, most of them have a tremendous amount of salt, which is a savory thing that most of us gravitate towards. And what's the opposite of salt? Sugar.
Sugar.
So what do they take out of these prepared meals? Fat and protein. They replace it with a ton of carbohydrates, and they say it's a low-fat way of eating. I'm not making this stuff up. Go look at the ingredients, a tremendous amount of sodium, remove the fat and the protein, which, by the way, are the only two macronutrients that satisfies hunger. So if you and I want to dupe people into spending $100 a week on these prepared meals, give them a lot of salt, give them a lot of hidden sugars, and they're going to buy the living snot out of these. But because it says no fat, low fat, they've been mind warped to think that this is the only way that you can lose weight. Then they go to the gym, they get somebody that crucifies them, so damn sore that they can't brush their teeth. How many weeks are you going to do that? All right, how many months are you going to do before you're like, pull the parachute, I'm done?
You'd be lucky to make it through the month, coach. That's the reality of it. So,
but the weight loss industry banks on it. Literally, the first quarter of every year is literally their Christmas for the rest of the year. I used to be in the grocery industry. I know this for a fact. I used to actually be a buyer in the frozen food category. I talked to the guys who sell all of these different weight loss meals. They're 90, I think their number was like 92% of their revenue comes in the first quarter of the year.
Wow.
Now, my point is this isn't to slander anybody. Business is business, but I want people to step back and go, really? What is it that you and I always discuss? Food is very simple. You walk in the store, you shop the perimeter. Fruits, vegetables, lean protein, dairy. Unless you have diagnosed, you've proven that you've got some really, really bad sensitivities to it, there's nothing in the perimeter of the store you shouldn't eat. Should you look for meat that are pesticides free, hormones free? When you get into the dairy, you want to avoid the bovine hormones? Absolutely. You and I are not saying go just eat crap. You want to eat the highest quality that's available to us, but please do not remove a food group unless you've been absolutely validated that that food group makes you sick. Like if you have definitive celiac disease, sure, you've got to avoid gluten. And we can talk about dairy and, lean protein and all that goes with it. So let's just kind of step back, Dan, and kind of wrap up those two categories. Strength training just needs to be something that exposes load to the body. Cardio needs to be something that you can do every day. Now, I live in Florida. It's hotter than heck. If you don't get out with the sun, you're going to be smoked. I get that. So that goes back, Dan. Maybe in the morning you get up right before the sun. Yeah, it's a little warm, but you're not going out there for an hour. You're going out there for 10 or 15 minutes. You're going to break a sweat, come in, take a shower, get your day started. And then when you come home, maybe that's when you do jump rope, or maybe that's when you do some military spiders, or you do burpees in your little gym space. If you're fortunate enough and you've got a Concept 2 rower or a bike on a stationary trainer or a treadmill, great. I'm not telling you need to go buy one. I'm saying if you have it, keep the intensity low and make sure that, because if you know that you're going to come home and you're just literally going to walk on the treadmill for maybe 15 minutes and you're going to get caught up on the news or check your social media or whatever. Think about that, Dan. How many of us sit and we check in on our social media? Can you imagine if you told yourself, I'm not going to look at social media all day, and when I get home, because maybe that's just something that you enjoy. Maybe you watch funny laughter reels or something that just lifts your spirits. Laughter makes everybody feel good. You come home, you make yourself change clothes, or I'll tell you what, I would encourage you to do is change your clothes at work if it's logistically possible. So when you get home, you're going right to the treadmill or right to the elliptical or whatever you're using. Check your social media for 20 minutes. You know how fast time goes by when you're on social media.
Yeah.
So now you got your 20 minutes of social media and your 20 minutes of cardio indoors. I know it sounds silly. I've got one gentleman, he's an awesome guy. He actually knows how many steps it is around his island in his kitchen. He literally does loops around his island, and he literally keeps track of how many loops he does per day to get a certain amount of steps in.
Now that's hardcore, and nobody has an excuse after hearing that.
Absolutely. But he'll also tell you, he works for a German company. So the challenge that he has is when he would normally be going to bed, Germany's waking up. So now he's staying up till 3, 4 in the morning to kind of get them going. Then when he wants to go to bed, East Coast is waking up. Now all of a sudden and he pretty much is, with his permission, he's getting 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep.
Wow.
And he literally doesn't have time to work out because he literally is, you can imagine if you're working a job that goes across all the different time zones. Yeah. So that's why he walks around his island, because he does it while he's on the phone.
So
go ahead, excuse me.
We've identified strength. We've identified cardio. There's one more piece, Coach, and I want to keep this short because we're running low on time. But
yes,
there's one more piece of equipment that everybody needs, and that is a
2-liter bottle of soda.
Oh, that's not what I was going to say, but you need that too, right?
Yeah.
How about the grill?
Well, and I definitely want the grill, and we'll come back to that in just a second. The third component, strength and cardio, needs to be complemented with soft tissue maintenance. And that's why I think everybody should have a 2-liter bottle of soda, because if you shake that up, that's an impromptu foam roller. Because Dan, I get this quite a bit. Man, those foam rollers are expensive. They're $40, $50, $100. I get it. And they've got all kinds of attributes. They've got ribs in them, and they've got all. If you look at the way that you foam roll with some of those high profile foam rollers, there actually is a science behind them. But as we always say, Dan, if you're not going to use it, don't spend the money on it. Start with a 99-cent 2-liter bottle of soda and shake it up so it's nice and taut. You can do any body group, calves, quads, ITB band, a whole 9 yards. So remember, those 3 always work together, but they never separate from one another. Because strength without flexibility is useless. Flexibility without strength is useless. And that's what the foam roller will do for you.
See where I'm at, Coach? I went to the grill before the foam roller. Shame on me.
No, not at all. It's early in the morning for you. I'm sure you're ready for breakfast. The reason why I wanted to kind of throw this grill in here as kind of a sense of humor is I cannot tell you how many times people said, yeah, I've heard you talk about the idea that you need to grill every other day. So if you grill on Monday, that'll help you feed the family Monday night. That gives you lunch for Tuesday. Maybe have some reheats for Tuesday night, then grill again on Wednesday. We're all tight on time. But when we talk about the idea of cooking, packing, prepping, and then eventually consuming, let's set yourself up for success. And I think if you're going to invest in anything for yourself, you need to invest in a heart rate monitor. The Garmin gives you insight into both your sleep and your exercise. But I think you should also invest in a grill. Because I hear people say, yeah, I get the concept, but my grill's broke or my grill's outside. Well, then get one of those little T-fall grills that goes on your counter. That's kind of an internal personal joke between Michaela and I, because when I was a single dad, I would, I only had the chance to have my boys on Wednesday through Sunday every other week. And I lived on the lake, actually in Claremont on Lake Mineola. So when they would come out, we were on the boat from when they got out of school until sunset. And then we'd go inside and we'd cook chicken and burgers and stuff on the T-fall inside because we wanted to be inside. We like listening to music and stuff like that. I get it. I was in a small condo. I was on the water, didn't have a lot of space, meaning I didn't have a a big patio for my grill. So I just bought a little T-fall for my countertop. My wife's a gourmet cook, so for her, that's sacrilegious to actually cook on a T-fall, but that's okay. That's why it's a family joke that we have here. But you're right, Dan. I just think people need to look at how do we set up the convenience of consuming high quality protein by a grill? How do I get my high quality fruits and vegetables? Shop the perimeter of the store. Then, as we always say, make some time to actually, because you went to the store, that's the hardest part. When you come home, take some time, wash, prep, pack, cook, pack it all together. So tomorrow morning, when you go to grab lunch, it's Tupperware. It's got home cooked meals. It's never more than a day old. So the high quality is there. The bioavailability is there. Then when you go to exercise, make sure it's convenient, maybe in the other room, maybe in the garage, someplace that, and it's, remember, try to keep it as clean and as designated as it can possibly be. Dan, for someone like yourself who likes to ride moto, I like to take a pit board, and let's say that you're really struggling with those right-hand turns without using a rear brake. And we know, or we notice that your the inside of your thigh, the adductor, is just not as strong as it needs to be. And it keeps dabbing in the corner. Well, you're right, that frustration, dabbing in right-hand turns. Then when you're doing side skaters, or we take that big fit ball and that exercise ball and we squeeze it like the old Thigh Master by Suzanne Summers. As silly as it sounds, it engages that adductor muscle that runs from your pubic bone to the inside of your knee. It's a muscle that's necessary for stabilizing the bike at high speeds. Okay, great. Well, if you're in your designated area of your house doing strength work and you look at your pit board of frustrations, you're like, I'm not leaving the gym. I'm not going to forget to do those thigh squeezes or side skaters, because that's my frustration of my favorite sport, which is riding moto. Always reverse engineer it. If you're somebody who's at work and you keep having calf cramps, you write that up on your board, get a dry erase board, calf cramps. It's going to remind you to grab that 2-liter soda and give it 3 minutes of just foam rolling your calves. Because remember, cramping can come from dehydration, electrolyte depletion, or there's too much load on the tissue. So you females that are walking around in high heels, you're essentially, your calves are in a full state of contraction. Dan, if you and I walked around flexing our arms, let's say we walked around with 50 pounds in our arms, or excuse me, in our hands, and we had our elbows bent at 90 degrees, eventually our biceps are going to go into spasm because the load is just too long.
Yeah.
That's what the women are doing in the high heels. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense, is have those frustrations where you can visually see them in a designated area. So for that 15, 20 minutes, you're like, I'm here getting stuff done, and I'm doing it in a simple, sustainable manner. I'm enjoying it. And then once a week, I should see the pound of fat dropping off, which, by the way, men and women, right? Dan, you and I like to buy new race gear. If I drop 8 or 10 pounds, that gives me a reason to buy new gear.
That's right.
I'm pumped.
That's right. Well, Coach, this one's been awesome. I think the listeners will love this one. Again, if you're listening to this and it's close to New Year's and you had a New Year's resolution, good luck to you. Yep. I'm not a fan. If you're like me, right, I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions, because it's like something that, it's like a fad, right? You're trying to, your neighbor has one, so you think you have to have one. When you're ready to make a change, you can make a change in 10 seconds, right? So yep. That's how I am. But strength, cardio, get your foam roller, get a good grill. I prefer the Traeger. I have a Traeger smoker. They're really easy to set, put your food on, forget, come back when it's done. Yep. You don't really have to do anything, which is convenient for me.
But do you see how you went to convenient? Not only it's easy to set up, convenient, you can go do something else, come back, it's ready. As much as people may have scoffed at that C word at the beginning of the conversation, the reality of it is we're not soft. We're not trying to be coddled. I always go back to a professional athlete. Their entire, let's call it the team around them, the only thing the team is trying to do is keep everything convenient and trying to keep the percentage of output, right? Race teams go to win. It's a collective effort to win. So everything that operates underneath that awning is about validating and doing everything possible to create an environment of success. Now, you could argue that success comes through convenience, part of the equation, comes from dedication and discipline, part of the equation. It comes, I'm with you, Dan, I'm not much of a Hallmark holiday kind of guy. But to me, your biggest goals, and if you go and you look at them year over year when they're not achieved, it's not that the goal was too big. It was just there was too many frustrations that got in the way. It's those accumulation of hurdles. And if you trip over the first hurdle, you have less momentum for the second. And you, by the time you get to the end of those 400 meters of hurdles, you've already sat down at 200 meters and you're tapped out.
Yep.
Doesn't make you a loser, doesn't make you a quitter.
No.
It's just human nature. I like what you said. Convenience. That cooker is about convenience.
I shouldn't say it is convenient, but it's also efficient, right? I could set the temperature. I could put my tri-tip on it. I could close the lid and go do something else for an hour and a half. I don't ever have to go back out there and flip it and babysit it, right? I could go do something else with that time. So
but
for
think
me,
about it. A caveman, but a caveman couldn't have done that. So that convenience, when leveraged, now it allows you to be able to, and I hate to use this word, multitask, all right? Because this gets into the sports psychology side of things, but nobody is good at multitasking. The brain works the most effective when it's focusing on one thing at a time. This has been proven umpteen times over. But to your point, a group of investors got together and said, we're going to create the most convenient, most efficient, best tasting grill available. What's going to go in it? We'll put a lid on it, put a timer on it. We'll do enough research that will tell them exactly, put this piece of meat in at this weight, cook it for this long, and it's going to come out medium rare. They do all the work for you to do what? Make it convenient. You read the instructions. You like it medium rare? You put it in, you walk away. It allows you to go be your wife's husband. You can go be your daughter's dad. You can think about this, Dan. If you had to jump in your truck and drive 4 miles down the road to go work on your dirt bike, would that be convenient?
No.
But yet people think that they can go to the gym and then they wonder why they want to tap out. You're not a pansy. You're not being soft. And again, I'm not like trying to dote all over people. If I had to go 4 miles down the road to go get my coffee, I'm not talking Starbucks. I'm going to go 4 miles down the road to get my homemade cup of coffee. I probably would stop drinking coffee because the cost benefit isn't there. Well, that's what happens in the gym. It's not convenient enough. And again, not in a crybaby way. We're human. We're tight on time. And I want to leave everybody with this thread of thought. Can you imagine at some time in the day, Dan, you could literally say to yourself, I've got 40 minutes. I don't know what to do with myself.
That'd be nice.
Think about that. We all idealize it. And that's where that Parkinson's law, work will fill the amount of time that's allocated to it. That's why I try to encourage entrepreneurs. I do a lot of consulting with young entrepreneurs. I love to encourage people to start their own businesses. And what I always say is if you reverse engineer, you should actually start finding yourself having more time. Not the first 10 years. You know, Dan, you started several companies. As they always say, you're not going to have more time and more money. You're going to have less of both. But if you can plan ultimately to set yourself up, and the goal is at the end of the day, there's several breaks during the day where maybe you gave yourself 90 minutes to do a business project and you got it done in 70. Well, now you can use those 20 minutes to go for a walk, go to the grocery store, stuff that now you're not doing it under the gun. Like, you know, I got to get to the grocery store on my way home and I've got to try to work it in. I got to worry about traffic and can I get home in time? And damn it, they only have 3 cashiers here and I need 5. See how, I know it sounds crazy, but when all of a sudden when you create convenience and it creates time, most of us will fill it with something else.
Yeah, definitely.
So imagine going into the new year with having that relief of, man, I'm getting stuff done before it's due and I've got all this extra time to learn the guitar. I could go for a walk. I could go on date night. I could go push my daughter in the swings. Stuff you won't be able to do 10 years from now because she's going to be in college.
Yep. No, absolutely.
All right,
this one's been fun. I love it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all the subscribers, all the listeners here on YouTube. If you're listening to an audio version, thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys like and subscribe as well. It helps us out. Leave those comments. We love comments. We've said that every single pod. We love to see the comments. If you have questions, Coach Robb is always open to receive your emails. And Coach, thank you.
Thank you so much, brother.
And we will see you guys on the next one.
Peace.